I'm delighted to have Tom Baker on the show this evening, the head coach of Essex and Herts Leopards, to talk through their game against Reading Rockets this season. How are you, Tom? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm all good. Really pleased to have you on. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
That's all right. Just a bit of background on Tom. So, head coach of Essex and Herts Leopards. He's also a sports lecturer at Oaklands College. He's currently studying a master's in performance coaching at the University of Stirling. And also, if you don't mind me adding, Tom, the best level 3 assessor I've ever had. Yes, you were the only one, but you're still the best at it. No, I genuinely really appreciate what you did for me. You gave brilliant advice and support, and especially in that game against Surrey, when I was walking up the sidelines stressing out, you were really helpful. So thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Okay, so we'll go straight into the game. Reading against Essex Leopards. Now, if you wouldn't mind, just sharing what was your tactics heading into this game?
I mean, over the years, Leopards and Reading have played like a lot. So I think I always speak to Dave about the fact that I think Reading and Leopards have played each other more than probably many other Division 1 clubs. So historically, it's always been a game I've enjoyed because, I mean, I've been the Leopards coach for the last 3 or 4 years. So I always enjoy playing in them. And obviously, since Alan took over, again, it's also a lot of personal thing for me going up against, I think, one of the more talented coaches in the division. Not saying anything about any others, but I mean, Alan being a national team coach for however many years he's been now, I think I've got a lot of time, and I have a good personal relationship with Alan that I always look forward to those battles, you know. So, and I think with this one, it was a tough one because the previous year when we had likes of Sam and Leon, then we had a very good year against Reading. I think we beat them on all occasions. And even quite comfortably. This year, though, we had a poor pre-season friendly against them, and then we struggled at home. But obviously in this one, we had most recent additions, and obviously we brought in LVC and Norland because of the whole Royals thing. And then, so they were starting to now find their groove. And obviously we brought Osvaldas in, who wasn't even playing. He played in Germany the year before. So I was confident that we had enough to match them. And I think with Reading having some injuries coming into this, they'd had a few poor results. I just got a sense that we could have really capitalized on some of that stuff. So the big thing for us, as it had been all year, was to really get out and run. Any chance we got to stop, any chance we managed to get a loose ball, whether it be a turnover, whether it be just a defensive possession where we were just really tough, I wanted us to get out and run. And Orland and LVC's sort of approach to help us with this was, I thought we had a good balance of maybe previously when we got out and we ran in earlier in the year, we maybe didn't have the talent to always capitalize on those opportunities. But with the likes of LVC, Oz, OJ, and then with Prince and Chuck in that lineup, I think we had a number of people across the board that would be able to punish teams when we got out and we ran. You know, Prince probably one of the quickest guards in the division. I think he's great in the open floor, and I think it gave us a chance to really exploit that. And then with the fact that we had two obviously BBL players in LVC and Orland, we used that to our advantage in the fact that we tweaked our end of break or our secondary break options to basically have them more involved in ball screen action. So we started to send more people through, and sometimes it meant we had a two-man action. Sometimes it meant we had a 3-man action, but we ended up being in a situation where you'll see a lot of this, whether we reverse through Orland or not, it didn't really matter. We managed to tweak our tactical situation where it meant that we had LVC coming downhill, finding guys out, and obviously then being a situation where we used Orland's effectiveness that if they dropped on Orland, he could step out and he could hit the 3. If they didn't, then obviously he could also go to the basket and he could finish as well.
Okay, great. So for those benefit of those watching, there's a few names that were quite common there. There's Orland Jackman's number 13, LVC's number 9, Oz number 4, Chuck number 10, and Prince number 12. I noticed whilst you were talking about how you want the offense to run with that middle pick and roll, you were going like this. What are you looking for the guys to do as a result of that?
I'm just looking to us to get further up the floor. I'm looking to us to just clear people out. I'm looking us to be in a situation where we want to play with high spacing, forcing the defense to have to guard more space. I'd felt a lot of time throughout the year we were trying to play and trying to run a ball screen in quite tight, confined spaces and not realizing that I mean, ball screen action is a 5-player game, and if we don't have good spacing with all 5 players, actually we're not going to create the advantage we want. So just watching this back now, I'm just trying to look to see how was our spacing in those situations we ran that ball screen. Did we even need to run a ball screen? Was actually someone already in an advantage situation that actually? So you just saw the one where Prince was pushing it down the floor or whatever. Like sometimes we might not need to just push it down the floor, making the defense collapse. An easy kick out to someone might even create a long closeout, giving us a chance to attack without even needing to run stuff. Like I very much wanted us to be a team that didn't get bogged down in running stuff this year. I wanted us to get out and play in the open floor.
So
But
more
ultimately,
react rather than sets. Is that what you're looking for?
yeah, but obviously I realized that when you have guys like Orland, obviously we took the sense of, I mean, his first game he played for us was against Westminster. We played all 40 minutes, you know, so I'd already sort of changed our mindset, the fact that we were going to have guys that were going to play a lot of minutes, which was a sort of different philosophy than I'm sort of akin to. Not that saying I want to rotate all 12 people, I have done in the past, but playing our style, which is obviously up tempo in the open floor, you're going to need to rotate a little bit to ensure that you're keeping up with that tempo. Okay. But in the latter parts of the season, playing against obviously Reading, and we'd had a couple of good results around this, and after this, I'd come to a balance that we were going to have to balance the whole running, but also balance the chance of being a bit more composed. And I think with this lineup, it allowed us to be in a situation where Prince or LVC could be the ones running the ball screen for us if they were using Orlan to play through. It gave a chance to have shooters, in the fact that Chuck and Oz could hit the ball, could hit the shot from the 3-point line, but also both of them, if we needed them, could also post up. As you can see now, there's a lot of open space in the key there with Orlan being out on the perimeter. So I think we had a lot of versatility in this lineup, and I think ultimately they gave us a big chance to be successful in this game.
Okay, great. So as you saw then, the ball was fed into Orlan, into the post. What are you looking for off the ball?
I think we first of all got to give him time to play. I think, again, with someone of Orlan's experience, as you saw there, like, give him a little bit of time to play. He got the defender off his feet, picks up a foul. So what I don't want us to be is, yes, we could maybe make a Laker cut. We could play off him and be in a situation where we're looking to use his also playmaking ability. But I wanted us to give him a chance to play one-on-one. So we talked a lot early on the year and throughout the season about whenever we highlight a mismatch, maybe it's a size advantage or maybe it's a quickness advantage, I wanted us to exploit that. Again, coming from a situation of, for me, basketball is a lot about advantages. And if we can find one, or if we have one, I don't want to be the one as the coach to try and make us run something just for the sake of running it, where we might already have a chance to be as effective as we could be. You know, I mean, as a player, you've experienced some of those venues. I mean, your venue at Hemel, you go and play somewhere, like sometimes even if players wanted to hear me, I'm not too sure they could, you know? So I very much want my players to be of the belief that they can make decisions out there. As long as they make one, if it comes off or not, like, okay, we'll see. But just look at that there. We've just been scored on, a push ahead by Prince, Chuck running the floor. We don't have to do anything then. Straight away, we just get a score back after being scored on, you know? So things like that, it was great to see that finally coming off fruition in this game, because I beated that drum a lot that year of, even scored on or not, I reckon we could have got down the floor a whole lot quicker than we did do across the season. So it's great that obviously right on cue, Prince is doing that for us.
Mm-hmm. With the just continuing with offense, with their full court man press, so you can see Chive and Dixon, they're up on Prince and LVC. How are you looking for the guys to beat that?
If I'm honest, we struggled in pre-season against their full court press. Obviously, didn't have LVC then. Early on, I think we played with a few guys that didn't end up staying with us. So early on, their pre-season fixture against us, they really hurt us. In this one, I didn't really give it much thought. Again, going back to the Westminster game, we'd struggled a lot with zone presses throughout the year, and Westminster liked to run one as well. And we just, using the experience of an Orlan and LVC, I said to them before some of these games, look, be ready for it, but I needed them to be composed. I needed them to not go head down, just see the open floor. And as you can see in that clip before, it wasn't as if Chive and Dixon were up pressing us. They were just containing us in the full court. They just wanted you to be 94 feet from your basket, seeing someone. So first of all, I was asking the question: is it a press or are they in containment? If they're in containment, then just be comfortable handling that containment. If we can get the ball up the floor, get the ball up the floor. If we can't, just handle that ball with a little bit of pressure and be okay with it. Because more often than not, our advantage will be in the full court and in the front court. Sorry, and I felt that even with a little bit of containment, we had a good opportunity to score with the players we had on the floor. So as long as we didn't become flustered with just seeing someone in front of us, actually pressure wasn't really pressure. It was more that it would be more of an irrational pressure that we would put on ourselves.
Okay. From the start of the game, you're shooting a lot of 3-pointers. I don't know if I'm sure you are aware, because I know you're a man who very much attention to detail, but you led the league with 33.5 3-point shots a game. And in this game, you shoot 34. Is that another tactic you're looking to adopt?
Definitely. Look, I think for us early on, as I said, with running, I felt we were going to be a good team early on in shot clocks. That if we could beat teams down the floor, flatten defense, and create chances for kickouts and shots. Some of these threes, maybe we could have found better options. Maybe some of these transition looks maybe might not have been what we wanted. But for me, it was, if we can create a shot guys are comfortable taking within the flow of how we're playing, then again, giving them license to play at freedom. As you're seeing here now, a couple of different penetration kicks options, and we get a three. So the thing for me was, we'd had a conversation about we turned the ball over. We suffered a lot from turnovers across the year as well. So the question we were sort of asking was, I'd rather us shoot the ball when we got a chance to shoot than play later in the shot clock and not get a better shot. You know, yeah, some of these chances maybe were never known. If we would have ran something, if we would have played it through, maybe we would have got a better shot. But I was at some points in this game, particularly when we're feeling it, maybe we're hitting a couple, maybe the game's quite the flow of the game was within our favor, then I don't want to be someone that sits there and is running something for the sake of it. Because look at our reactions here. Liam misses that. We're all out. We're all down the floor. Like now we can play together to create a high percentage shot, you know. And I felt that all of the guys, if they got within rhythm, I mean, Toby's now on the floor. Those first 6 guys that have played so far, any one of them a shot within rhythm gives us a chance to go in, you know. So I didn't want to take those chances away from them, because again, whilst you may never be in the situation, I feel like if I start telling guys not to take shots sometimes, and I don't get me wrong, I appreciate there is a time and a place maybe for it. Who's to say that person later on down the line needs to take that shot to win us the game or to put us in the game? But in that moment, he's sitting there thinking, well, coach didn't want me to take that early in the game. Why now? And then it becomes a non-committed decision, or not as committed as it could have been. So at the end of the day, as long as players are committing to these shots, then great. You know, we can discuss if there was a better opportunity when we go through video, but if there wasn't, it's just a decision we make. Like, so what? It doesn't come off for us. Doesn't necessarily make it a bad decision, but it doesn't necessarily make it a great decision. It's just a decision we made. I'm more about yes and no rather than like, was this great? Was this not? We could talk about better shots all the time, but when you're playing at the tempo we're playing at, like sometimes. So for that one there, yeah, maybe Prince could have got a better shot. You know, wasn't as uncontested as Chuck's one a couple of minutes ago, but unfortunately, with the style I asked him to play as a coach, I've got to be aware that's the kind of give and take, you know.
Okay. On the previous possession, you ran a fist play. I believe that's a Spain pick and roll.
Yeah.
What's your intentions with that play?
I mean, just for what we got, you know. If we can get the roller to the basket, so you saw LVC set the back pick for OJ. So if we can get him to the basket, great. You know, we've got 2 guys in the corners that normally are shooters. So obviously, whoever's defending them are going to be a little bit closer than they maybe would normally if those guys weren't shooters. So giving us that middle ball screen with that back pick just gives us a chance that if they go with the shooter coming off, so LVC hit a 3 already, or they know what LVC can do. So the fact that he's the one setting the back pick, they're gonna have to guard him coming off the screen. So they've got 2 choices: go with Orlan, let's dive into the ring, or go with LVC, who's popping out. And I just felt that with Prince using the screen and LVC and OJ in the action, it's a double-edged sword. Which one are they going to take?
That's a tough play, yeah, for sure.
And again, Prince going downhill on that, going to the basket, he can hit that mid-range jump shot. He get to the rim. Like, I felt that again, it's a simple action that didn't take much time for us to get into. That once we got into it, gave us a number of different options for us to play. And we tried to be a team this year that whenever we ran something, we didn't just have one option from it. We had maybe two, maybe three options from it, because I felt, again, with guys on the floor, we had more than one or two people that could put the ball in the basket a certain way.
You finished that quarter up 1 and keeping them to 20 points, you scoring 21. Are you happy with that as your first quarter?
In reflection of the season, yeah. I mean, because there's been some games this year where we've conceded a lot more than that. Ideally, I'd like to be a little bit less, but again, probably if you look back to these possessions, the possessions are probably across the game is north of 80, maybe nearly close to 90 for each team. So if you're looking at that, 20 points against a team like Reading, if they were to do that the whole way through, if you kept this Reading team to 80 points, you've probably done okay, you know. So yes, in reflection to how we'd played that year, because defensively we weren't that strong, we could have been better. But I'd like it to have been maybe 16, 18, maybe a basket or two. So that maybe that one where, and I'm not just using that as an example, it's just the one that I remember, but Prince's one when he takes a shot and they go and hit the three, maybe that's where you go back and you look at it and you go, a different shot maybe would have got something. But like, I'm not upset that we took that shot in this moment, because as I said, we were asking him to play at a certain tempo that that was the give and take we gave. So
cool. Just the chap on the ball now, Nick Richards, obviously a massive player for them. What was your tactics for guarding him?
When he's out on the perimeter, I'm not saying not to worry, that sounds a bit disrespectful, but when he's out on the when he's out on the perimeter, that's the shot we'll be more comfortable with him taking. You know, he didn't look himself. I remember it was this stage of the season, or whether it was a few injuries, or it was a bit of pressure. I'd felt that when we played him early on in the year at our place, he didn't look comfortable shooting the three and never really looked to take it. If he took a couple dribbles in and took a mid-range jump shot or got to the basket, I mean, he's probably one of the more dynamic guards across the division. Probably Mike, that you guys had last year, was probably the most dynamic guard across the division. But Nick, when he got someone off the bounce, he could have got to the basket anytime he wanted, you know, so we didn't want him to do that. So make sure he shot the ball, but make sure in a situation where he didn't get downhill.
I really like what you're doing on this possession right here. Obviously, it's due to go to the free throw line. You call the guys over. Do you use free throws as an opportunity, as a sort of a short timeout?
As many times as I can, really. Like, it is. I don't want it to be a discussion as such. I don't want it to be like a meeting that goes on for ages. But I want to use players as a resource, you know. So now I'm sitting here, I'm asking some of the guys, what are they seeing, what are they thinking? This is what I'm thinking, and we go out, we make a decision. And actually, with Aaron, who's just come on the floor there now, just walking back and forth. Again, another one that came from the Royal situation. I actually felt in this game we didn't utilize him well enough. A dynamic guard that actually could have maybe helped us defensively. And a strength of ours. So yeah, going back to your question, definitely any chance we can, just to get their feedback. It may just be how we feel and we good. Like, it doesn't have to be a long one, but definitely getting them a chance to, as I said, using the players as a resource, because they're the ones out there. So I want to try and get their feedback as much as possible.
Okay. Played a lot of man to man to begin with. What are you looking for with that? What's your strategy with that? What's your principles?
I mean, early on in the year, and it was sort of misunderstood a little bit, probably down to maybe my poor explanation of it. But we wanted to be in a situation where we may be in a position to help, but we never have to give help, if that makes sense. So early on, I think the guys, as I said, probably down to my poor explanation. We've kind of looked back across the season, Roger and I and Seth, about how maybe we could have delivered that a bit better, because my understanding was the players thought I never wanted them to help each other, which was not what I meant. But I wanted us to be in a situation where one-on-one, the guy defending that guy was giving the best he could. I appreciate it's tough with the tempo guys play at, but I want us to be in a situation we weren't a team that the guy defending one-on-one just got bailed out. So I wanted us to be in a situation where we were as good as we could be one-on-one. Ultimately, it didn't work out that way. We struggled a lot one-on-one. So it meant early on in the season, there was this constant battle that I was asking the players to be better at that. And they wanted to be in a situation where we had a more traditional, like help the helper kind of thing. And as I said, it's not that I wasn't asking for that. Maybe I didn't articulate it well enough as the coach, and that's just coming down to some learning for me. But in terms of our man, I want us to be a situation where, and at this point in the season, because we'd made some adjustments, our first primary thought was to, similar to how Reading were D'ing us up, that if we could get out and be in front of their face 94 feet from our basket, great. If not, the most important thing is no one just gets an easy attack to the basket straight under a ring. So containment was our main thing. And particularly, again, if you're sitting there with an Orland that's going to play 40 minutes, LVC going to play just the same as that with the likes of Prince as well, there was no way we could be in a situation where we could pressure a lot. So at this time of the season, we decided, Roger and I, that we were only really going to change it on dead balls or from free throws. And we would, if we wanted to go from containment to a pressure, we would pressure after the going zone for a small moment, So the fact that we've stayed man is that we're just varying. I've given license to the likes of Aaron, given license to the likes of Prince, sort of the quicker guys out there. I've said, look, if you want to get up and you want to pressure the likes of Chive, then I felt we could pressure him. Obviously, he played a lot for Alan, but I felt that we could put him under pressure. So I gave Prince the license to get up on him, Aaron the license to get up on him. But we wanted to be in a situation where, as they're coming over the half, there's someone in front of the ball. So as you see now, getting to the 3-point line, Aaron's there. We're doing an okay job. Maybe could have done better there, but we needed to be in a situation where, as they attacked, someone was in front of us, because I felt we struggled with rebounding this year. So if we gave people open shots or open chances to get to the rim, either they scored or they were getting offensive rebounds on us. So our main thought was more of a containment than a pressure. It had changed throughout the year. And we're sort of looking at that now in this off season about where maybe next season might go to. So
great, thank you. And with the screen coverages, I've seen a few, like a hard hedge, I've seen an under, I've seen fighting over. Was that based on the person, the ball handler?
Yeah, I mean, we tried a few across the year. So we'd doubled some across the season. We'd iced some. We'd hard hedged. At this point in the season, from my memory, I think we'd gone to a situation where it was interesting, because this game in particular, we'd had a meeting as a team before all this. I'd met every individual player, and I'd sort of just started to say to them, it hadn't been a great year for us. We lost a lot of games, but I never felt at this time of the season. I mean, you look at some of these guys. It's not as if at this time of the year we don't have the talent. So we'd had a conversation a lot leading up to this, just sort of saying, where are we at, how are we feeling? And actually spoke a lot about non-basketball things, just because I wanted to get a bit closer to the guys in terms of knowing them a little bit better. Because then I felt like if we were going to tweak things, which I felt we were, maybe tweaking some defensive stuff, some offensive stuff, if we were just a little bit more connected, then that would get the result. So in terms of our screen coverage, I gave license to the guy defending the screen user. So, I mean, depending on if they're a shooter or not, we would probably be in a situation we'd be going over. But for instance, like a Nick Richards, we're saying he's going to be someone that wants to go downhill. We probably would have been going under on him, being a situation where we wanted to be getting on his driving lane. We wanted to be more in a hard hedge, because again, with an Orlan, being in a hard hedge, getting them to have to go around him or having to stay on the same side of the court. Again, if you're keeping teams on the same side of the court, then it becomes a whole lot easier to contain. If you're allowing the ball to switch from one side to the other, it becomes a whole different ball game in your ability to try and contain the ball. So the hard hedge approach was hopefully for us to try and keep the ball on one side of the floor. If we ever changed to something different to that, it would have been based on personnel, either who their guy was or who we had defending them. Felt if we maybe would have had some quicker guys, maybe been able to put them a little bit more under pressure. Any like for likes, we just switched. I wanted us to be more aggressive than actually we were in this game, but again, when you look at the end result and stuff like that, I guess it's one of those things where maybe in this one we did what we needed to do in this situation. You know, maybe if this was early on in the year, we might have changed some stuff within the game or something like that. But yeah, we wanted to be more aggressive, so a hard hedge was definitely sort of our main thing. Whether it was under or over, just was based on who the guy was using the screen.
Okay, great. Now, in the first quarter, Reading were really going after the offensive boards, and in the second quarter, you went back to the lineup of Orlan, Oz, and Chuck. Was that to counter their rebounding presence?
Yeah, again, I think as I've said, we struggled a lot throughout the year. So I felt Orlan and Oz were strong rebounders for us. I mean, you could argue that maybe Ray in this lineup may have helped pushing Oz out to the wing, and playing like Ray and an OJ at 4-5, playing Oz on the three. That because Oz likes playing on the perimeter and offensively. So yeah, like definitely this was our most effective lineup. If we're looking for rebound in particular, then definitely Ray's in that question because he was probably one of our most effective rebounders that year. So maybe he could have been in there instead of a Chuck or instead of an Oz or something like that. But definitely we went to this lineup for more of a defensive emphasis.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chuck on a fair few because I've played with Chuck for a few years. Brilliant player to play with. He was your captain this year. There's been a few times where someone's made a big play or you've had a big defensive stop, and Chuck's been there supporting them. That must have been really powerful for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, there's a number of reasons why he was my captain this year. You know, like I've spoke probably more to Chuck off the court than probably the only people that I probably spoke to more off the court is Roger and Seth. You know, like Chuck is heavily involved in decisions we make. I trust a lot of the decisions he comes with. He's an experienced player who's played Division One and for a number of teams now. That I've got a lot of time for Chuck. You know, and me and him, he gets it. You know, when he gets why I want to ask the players their opinion, but he also gets it sometimes when I'm a little bit tougher. You see me talking to him now.
Yeah.
He gets it, you know, and I think it helped that in this lineup, I mean, he was one of the only person to stay with me from the year before when we had the Sam and that. So that was a natural decision to make him it, but that doesn't do him justice enough by just saying that's the only reason he was our captain this year. You know, like he was willing to lead parts of practice. He was willing to put himself out on the line. He was willing to challenge coaches. He was willing to ask questions. He was willing to challenge his own teammates. Some of them weren't ready for that year, and I think that's partly down on their development and stuff like that. But whatever I asked of Chuck, he was willing to do, you know. And I don't think you can underestimate those type of people in a team, you know. So definitely, I don't regret that decision making him my captain, and like you said, him champion other people. All he had in his heart of hearts was wanting us to be as good as we could be, you know, and seeing him celebrate his teammates' success is just a small part of what Chuck is like as a captain. You know?
Yeah, it was fantastic to play with. If I wasn't shooting the ball, he'd quickly put his arm around me and say, "Just shoot the ball." And just having that in your mouth, if he's doing that from a captain in your ear, sorry, if you're having that from a captain's point of view, that must be great for the guys. Now I've got a lot of time for him. Another gentleman on the floor just hit a shot. Toby Castaldi Davis. Now he's a young boy, right?
Yep.
And the impact of him throughout the season, his development.
It grew, you know. Like I think early on he maybe was unsure what it was going to be like, you know, like playing under 18 in EABL. Like he may see the ball a lot in those games, whereas in these games the ball might not find him for a couple of offenses, you know, because at this level, a young kid, I mean, Cam obviously he killed it as a younger guy in Division One this year, but there isn't many, and obviously you got David Chiven here. There isn't many younger guys in Division One and across the board that are getting the ball in their hands a lot. You know, they may get the odd chance to shoot it and stuff like that. So his biggest adjustment this year was transitioning from sort of the junior game where he sees the ball a lot to maybe first of all in Division One just being a chance to, when he gets it, shoot the ball. And actually in our games that we won, I mean, just like that three there that he hits, I mean, he hits a couple of threes when we play Westminster. He hits a couple of threes in some crucial moments, and I think he gained his teammates' respect as being someone that can shoot the ball. And again, just being a bright kid off the floor. He's hungry to learn. He wants to be better. I mean, you're seeing him there, D'ing up Nick Richards. You
Chucked
know,
right in. Brilliant to see.
and I think again, as a young kid, I could have tasked Toby with whatever I needed to task him with that year, and he'd have taken it on board. You know, and I think he was a real pleasure to coach, and I mean, I know the family really well, and I've got a lot of time for Toby, so it was great to see him at this time of the year, really starting to come in fruition and making those shots.
Shots like that as well. Got to be
Well,
happy
yeah,
with that.
well, it's funny because we call a timeout and Chuck's like, let's run something, and I probably wouldn't even be able to draw up to you what we ran in that moment, but we ran something that ultimately got a back screen for LVC, and LVC just hits that shot for us, and I just think it was in those moments you walk into the locker room or we go in the back and you sit there and go, maybe today might be our day, you know, and we go in feeling a bit of confidence then, and yeah, sort of from there it flows.
I was just about to credit you on a great play. Take credit for say you drew
Yeah,
that.
no, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, they executed it well enough, you know. As it was something that we've never ran before, something we won't be able to run again. As I said, I wouldn't be able to draw it up for you again. It was just in the heat of the moment. We put some people in some key spots. I knew what I wanted us to get. A shot for one of our shooters. We got it, and obviously then it was down to the guys executing that and obviously hitting that shot.
Mm-hmm. So
A little bit of luck, but when you run stuff the way you want to run it, sometimes you get that.
Mm-hmm. So you're going into the half 44-42 to you guys.
Yeah.
What's your halftime discussion?
I think we hadn't been in this situation a lot this year. You know, either we found ourselves down a lot, or we found ourselves up a little bit. Like we never really found ourselves in a close game like this against a team like this. Ironically, one of the only other games we were in a situation like this was Solent when we played them at Brentwood Centre. We were only down by like 7 or 8 at halftime in that game, and then obviously then they played like they normally do in the second half. But we hadn't found ourselves in this situation. First of all, was to credit them being in a situation 2 points up at Reading, the importance of this game for our survival. That was the first thing, to credit them in what they were doing, and the fact that it wasn't always plain sailing, you know. So I really wanted to make sure they were aware that we'd done some things successfully. Then it was just being a situation, we highlighted some key areas. We wanted to keep getting the shots for certain people. But the biggest area we needed to tighten up was on the defensive end. We couldn't keep allowing them to get on the glass. And we needed to be in a situation where we were just getting a few more stops than we had been, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, it was just trying to keep them in the moment. Trying not to get too flustered with it. Yes, we're 44, 42 up, but 20 minutes is a long time to go, you know. So more often than not, it was just trying to be in a situation where, as I said, credit where we were, but to ensure that they were ready to do what was needed to do in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Now, this happens quite a few times. LVC's talking to the ref. How do you feel about that? Do you mind one of your lead players having dialogue with referees?
No, I mean, look, I make no bones about it. I don't ever really get involved in referee discussions, you know. One is because I've got a guy called Roger Malpass next to me who's excellent at that. And for me, I'm in a situation where, because a number of two things. Obviously, I'll make no bones about it. I'm still learning at this level, so I feel like if I spend too much time arguing with a referee decision, two things: either I'm missing a learning opportunity for me, or I'm missing a learning opportunity for my guys. So more often than not, I'd rather focus on things that can help us play, and more often than not, like, am I going to affect the referee decision in that moment? You know. Secondly, I just feel like there are too many things happening in the game that, again, if I get bogged down in the decision the referees make, again, I just feel like I'm wasting my time. Having said that, like, I get it from a player point of view. Sometimes players feel like they might need protection. They might just want you to question a few calls and stuff like that. So there are a few times where you will hear me, you will see me question the referee, but I won't necessarily do it just out in the open. I'll do it maybe in a dead ball situation, or I'll ask a question. But for no look, I would never be a referee, purely for the fact is I think it's one of the hardest jobs for them to do it justice, because you're always going to upset some people. But I think it's tough enough to referee a game at our level, that playing at the pace that we play at. All I want referees to do is, if they can explain to me why they make a decision, then I'm okay with that. That doesn't have to be a decision that we like or we don't like. But our culture, and the culture we will always have when I'm playing, is to just try and focus on the things we control. So look, as long as the player isn't being disrespectful about it, I've got no issues with players having a conversation with the officials. I think you have to give them that license, and you have to give them that trust, because again, they're out there, you know. But the key thing for us is, look, you can ask that question, you can speak to them, but when the ball's back in play, we need to be ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, that's when I'll have an issue, you know, because as I said, I feel there are too many things happening in the game for us to either get better at or to repeat or stuff like that we can't spend our time worrying on a call that didn't go our way, you know.
Now, Leon was very aggressive in the first half, and as you see, he's trying to be aggressive again. Prince came down and trapped the post. Is that a read of the player, or was that a tactic you discussed in half-time, at half-time?
A bit of both, you know. We had two situations where we trapped the post this year. Depending on who they were, we would just double straight on a catch, or we doubled off a dribble, from a dribble. For Leon, it was one of those situations where sometimes he can be a bit erratic with it. Look, he's strong, he's physical. You saw him hit a bank shot over Orlan early on in the game. So if you give him chance to sort of back down, turn around, hit a shot, then that's what he likes. You know, he likes that physical game. But I think if you get him having to put the ball on the floor and having to see people in front of him, or having to deal with a couple of people around, I think that's when he can make some poor decisions. You know, I'm not too sure he does a great job with multiple people around him. So we even wanted him to be attacking sort of head down, like with Noah, like as you saw in that one, he sort of went baseline, not really realizing his position on the court, and ultimately ended up right under the basket. Or we wanted him to be a situation where we had to deal with a number of people around him. Therefore, a decision he made from that, maybe his passing ability from the post with multiple people around him, isn't something he's strong at, as opposed to being able to deal with someone one-on-one.
And just previous play, Reading were in a 1-2-2 zone press. Again, we were talking earlier, are you looking for the players to work it out themselves, or do you have a specific tactic to overcome that?
We did. We had a sort of a couple of different things that year. At this time of the year, we'd gone to more of a mismatch situation where we put someone sort of right in the middle. Ultimately, the key thing for me is getting them to understand where the spaces are. So if they're odd at the top, then obviously we need to be even. We need to split them. If they're even at the top, we need to be odd. So that's the first thing where I need the players to understand what type of zone is it. Are they odd or are they even? If we know what it is, then ultimately needs to be a situation. So we had an offense for an odd fronted zone. We had an offense for an even fronted zone. We struggled throughout the years to execute against both. Definitely struggled more against odd fronted than even fronted, probably because of the frequency of seeing even fronted zones, the 2-3s and stuff like that. So we had an offense where we had it would normally have been Orlan right in the middle, again, because we felt if they would have collapsed around him, he would have been able to see people. And then we had some screening action around just to try and get some shooters. But again, in the heat of the moment, when you're playing at the pace we're playing at, the guys are going to need to recognize that in that situation. Because again, Reading do sometimes do a good job of disguising some things. So you could come down the floor and they might be in something, or they might change it. So there has to be some element where the players can see what's in front of them. But look, we try and help wherever we can.
Okay. Now, you're in a 1-3-1. What's caused that? What's made that decision?
For me, I wanted to try and change some things defensively for us, just to give us a different feel for the game. As you said earlier, we played a lot of man. So sometimes when there's a long stoppage or a dead ball, we tried to go to zone. It wasn't necessarily premeditated, just in the heat of the moment. I would have called something they know that if I'm ever going to change from a man to a zone, it will only be in one or two situations. It'll either be from a timeout or from a dead ball. So they know I won't change it live in the game.
How come you change it on a score?
I feel like in our situation, in our level, again, unless we were extremely effective at it, which I don't think we were this year, too many teams. I mean, as you saw with us earlier, when we got the score after we were scored on,
Yeah.
I felt if we spend too much time, because ultimately after a score, the referee doesn't touch the basketball.
Yeah.
So if the teams get the ball inbound and we're worrying about setting up a zone, before you know it, you set it up and they've already scored.
Okay.
You know, so look, who knows if it's the right decision or wrong decision to make. It was just a philosophical belief we had that season where we were only going to go from a man to a zone on dead balls or out of timeouts.
Okay. And you only ran it for one possession.
Yep.
Did you feel it didn't work?
No, just again, it's a short time thing. You know, it's not that we're going to be in it for a lot. It's
Okay.
it's look for one possession. This, you know, and again, could we have run it a couple more times? Yes, maybe not. But then you're in that situation again where if they go for it after being scored on, it's one of those things where if you want players to make some decisions, for me, it's got to be simple. It's got to be clear, you know. So if they know they're only running it once, which again we would have talked about leading up to this game, that if we do change it, we're changing it for that one possession, or we would have talked at halftime, or we'd have talked in the timeout. Look, I'm thinking about changing defense in a couple of situations. If it goes to a dead ball soon and you hear me call this, it's just for that one possession. So I will kind of give them a heads up where possible. But I felt we were strongest in man. I didn't feel we were strongest in zones. So I don't want us to be sitting in the zone for a long time. And again, you've seen us go man to zone, back to man within the flow of the game without a timeout happening. Also, that could be tough for oppositions to realize that what are they doing? What are they in? It might change. It just might change the flow for a couple of seconds, couple of minutes, you know. And then we might go that minute or two on an even score line, or we might go up. Like so, it's just trying to manage the flow of the game.
Okay. And at this point in the game, you choose to run a lot of motion. What is motion?
Whatever you want it to be, right? No,
That's why I asked.
Again, for us, we had just had some key principles. You know, we had sort of reversal through Orlan and be a situation where if a Prince or a VC came down the floor and they reversed it through, they could shallow cut through, push guys out to one side. But they needed to decide if they ended up wanting to have a 2-player or 3-player ball screen. So what we could have with this, I think now VC is still on. What Prince's decision could have been in this moment was that if he wanted to reverse through Orlan, he could have kept LVC on the same side corner. So then as he runs the ball screen with Orlan, LVC's on the lift. Now our motion has a 3-player ball screen in it. LVC on the lift, he hits that shot, you know.
Okay.
Our motion ended up being, and it actually stemmed from when we had Lee the year before, where we gave a rule to our 5. So, and we're loose with that. We obviously didn't have a 7-footer this year as dominant as Lee is, but Orlan was highly effective for us. And even with Ray, he was effective diving to the ring. So our guy who's in the middle of the floor had license to be at the point. So sort of where, is that Nick Richards or is that Chive standing right at the top? I think it's Chive. It's just our pictures are in the race. I couldn't quite see. Yeah, so where Chive is now, so we'd keep a guy in the middle of the floor, or they would go block to block. So they would go block to block or out to that. So sort of acting in a little triangle. And we would keep, no one else was sort of allowed in that area. So it kept the other 4 people high spaced, sort of around where those badminton marks are. So again, as I said earlier, our motion was designed to making the defensive team to have to defend more space than they wanted to.
Okay.
You know, so with high spacing and a 5, sort of either reversing the ball or diving to the basket or ball screening and diving, I felt like it gave us a chance to have fluid movement, but also a chance to have some inside presence. So you remember I said earlier that there was an open key for Orlan to go into, or Chuck, or to Oz to go into. So sometimes we were 5 players out, sometimes we were 4 out, sometimes we ended like 1 in, sometimes it gave us this fluidity to be unpredictable. And I felt that versatility whilst playing at tempo was again a massive strength for us.
And we touched on it a little bit, but Orlan at times was sort of playing a point forward sort of role.
Yep.
Having that join your team must have been a fantastic bonus.
Yeah, unbelievable, and I think going back to the Westminster game when he was the first game he played for us, just the calmness he felt. I mean, he'd had 1 training session with us leading up to the Westminster game, and straight away I spoke to a couple people after, and just the calmness that was about our team for him coming in made a huge difference. As I said, we struggled a lot with pressures throughout the year. He came in and we didn't struggle a single time against Westminster. With Reading, him bringing the ball to the floor, I think he just gives he gives the opposition a tough time. If you come and defend him out in the perimeter, he is still dynamic enough to get to the rim. He can go coast to coast. If you step off him, then he's happy to come down. He can hit that transition 3. If you drop off him in a screen situation, then ultimately he can pick and pop and he can hit the shot. So having someone like him handle the ball, but also be involved in those situations, it just gave us a different dimension.
Ray, you've brought Ray on the floor for the first time in the game. Was that the right decision to bring him on in the third? Do you think he should have maybe had a touch of the floor in the first half?
If my memory serves me correctly, he arrived late to this game.
Oh,
very late. I think he struggled to get to the game on time. Disruptions and transport and stuff like that. So I think he arrived quite close to the game starting, if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
And I felt like I hadn't had a chance to talk to him in that moment. Now, look, to give Ray some credit, like I felt I could have probably thrown him and he would have been fine. He's a great guy. He's a lot of energy. He's been fantastic coach this year. You're asking, could I have got him in? Most definitely. I probably could have got him in beforehand. But I felt in that moment, we'd had practice. We then had the game. He turned up late. I just didn't want to be in a situation we were disrupting what we did have. As you said, it was a tight game. We were up in the first. We were up at half. It was tough to be in that situation. But you talked earlier about rebounding. He's definitely someone that can help with that.
Yeah, for sure. That buzzer beater there. Do you dwell on that in your post-quarter talk, or do you sort of move on to the fourth quarter?
I don't think you can. Look, I wouldn't be able to tell you right now, word for word, what I said in that moment. There might have been a situation where we might have spoke about something, but I don't think you can. In a game as close as this, you just gotta write it off. And
made it 64 all then. So
yeah. So the question is, and I think vaguely, if I remember there was a foul, and then from the foul, I believe I changed our defense, and it was one of those things where players weren't necessarily comfortable changing it in that moment. So now you've got a thing. I've asked to change it. They're not comfortable with it. Now where are we at? We're in a bit of a halfway house, and they hit the shot, and then you're probably in a situation where as a coach, you're going, did we really need to change it in that moment? And maybe if I'm a player, I could have gone, maybe I could have just gone with it, but neither one's right nor wrong. But now you're sitting on the flow of the game, like the things now with Reading. If they don't hit that buzzer beat, if they don't get that chance, we still go in 2 points up.
Yep.
Who knows? And I just think it's, as I said early on, there's still a lot of this level I'm learning about as a coach. I had a group that were learning a lot as well. And actually, Stephen, even at this situation, we hadn't played many games together. I think before Orlan and them had come in, I think a few games when they were in, so we added LVC as well. I could probably count the amount of games we had the same lineup this year on one hand. I think with me learning, with the guys learning, with the amount of changes we had this year, some of the stuff you're seeing in this game is down to a number of things. Maybe poor execution on both parts, coaches and players, lack of understanding from everyone. I think there's a number of things here that, if I'm honest, looking back, we could have done better, definitely as coaching staff. And I think the players will look around and go, they maybe could have taken some ownership from it. But in this heat of the moment, we're in a game against a very talented team. At this moment in the game, I'm just grateful that we're in it and that we've got a chance to win. Because leading up to a couple of games after this, win here, and it makes the next few games a little bit, not necessarily less important, but we get a bit of a rhythm going into some of those games that maybe would be deemed against easier opposition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, you said the few things you look back on that you wish you could have changed. I don't know if you remember from the game, but Reading had 29 fast break points. So what went wrong? What are your defensive transition principles?
So we talked a lot of this year about locating the ball early. Again, it's one of those things where it's that old attitude, like you're first taught to go home, you're first taught to run home. But if everyone runs home, like at this level, guys spot up on the 3-point line, the ball's traveling over the halfway line at speed. Like if you just run home, and I'm not saying figuratively all 5 people run home, but if that's the first thing you emphasize, you might not be slowing the ball down. So it's incredibly difficult. So we wanted to be in a situation where simultaneously this year, we picked up the ball as early as we possibly could, whilst also having someone in home, so we could be in a situation where our first job is slow the ball down, because I felt like, again, going back to when we played them at their place, we played a few teams this year. By the time we actually had someone in front of them, they were already down at our 3-point line. And when you look at guys like Nick Richards and you look at David Chive, they're quick, dynamic guards. They could get down to the 3-point line in a matter of seconds. So could we have been a bit better? Could we have got to the half court first before we played some defense? Could we have changed a few things up? Definitely. But I think this is a culmination of just, as I said, the changes we made and some of the things we could have done better this year defensively was probably happening in this moment. So definitely not nice because they probably had more fast break points than we did. And I would have said we were a team that was good in fast break. But if you're looking at where somebody's come from, I could count at double digits on some that have come from just some loose passes, and stuff like that. So you could probably eradicate 10 to 15 of those from just some poor passes. And if you don't give up live ball turnovers, then maybe some of those fast break points don't happen. So it would have been interesting to see how many fast break points they would have got from situations when we took good shots. If we took good shots, or they just got to stop, how many did they get versus how many did they get when, as you saw just then, we'd had a couple of loose passes, and they got down the floor in a matter of seconds.
That's an interesting. Yeah, Reading had 29 fast break points. You guys had 14. But like you say, that 29 doesn't say it all. So you make some good points there about how that 29 can be broken down. You're taking the right shot and they score a fast break point. Can't really complain there. Now, something I want to touch on. I think it was very savvy of you. I don't know if you remember it. Orlan goes down injured, and then there's a transition. Then we come back, and Leon Francis is fouled. You call a timeout. Is that timeout to allow Orlan a little bit more recovery time because he comes back in immediately?
Yes, and also I think just at that moment, as you already alluded to, Reading are getting a couple of easy shots. The tempo of the game is changing into their moment. He's turned around and he said he's good to go. So 2 things: he's now good to go, and at this moment, I could send him to the subs bench, and it might be 2 minutes before he gets in, or I could take a timeout and he gets in really quickly. And 2, they're now probably leading in this game, or if not, it's still incredibly close. But I haven't seen them miss yet, or they haven't missed much. So timeout I take is to change the rhythm and to get him in as quickly as possible. So yeah.
And that's 2 early timeouts. Do you worry about how many timeouts you have, or when you feel like you need one, you take one?
There's no hard and fast rule, I think in this, as you said, I think probably I need to be better at when I feel like taking one, take one. The big key thing for me is personally, and again philosophically, I don't like using timeouts just to reiterate something we should already be able to do.
Okay.
You know, so it's frustrating to use the timeout just to say, hey guys, can we work a little bit harder, or can we do this a bit more? Hey, come on, we know we're doing this. So I'd much rather use the timeout to teach something new, or just to help with a change from one defense to the next, or something like that. I'm more than happy to use my timeouts for that, or as I said, to disrupt the flow of the game. I think at this moment, at this stage of the game, you're in the fourth quarter. I think I have to use them. You know, I don't think I took one in the third, so I've got some to use.
Okay. That's just something
So I think
I've
we
always
have to use them.
battled in my head about when to use one.
It's interesting because obviously during this whole pandemic, I've listened to a lot, I've read a lot and stuff like that, and I think one of the big things I struggle with, and again, still being someone that's learning at this level, is when it first pops into your head about taking one, you're sitting there going, is this the right time to take one? Should I take one now? Okay, if I take one now, what will happen? And then before you've realized that, 2 or 3 possessions have gone and you go, I wish I would have taken one. You know, so sitting here now out of the season, I'd like to say next time it comes into my mind to take a timeout, I'll be taking one very quickly. But who's to say that I won't sit in a game and do exactly what I've just said? I think it's one of those things where there's a reason why you've thought in that moment to take one. Is it a predispositioned rule? You've said, look, we can't allow them getting this many points in a row. We can't allow them doing this. We can't. Is it something like that? Have they gone on a run that you've just said is unacceptable? So you've got to take one. Is it a personnel kind of thing? You want to change it up a little bit? Then fine. But I think for whatever reason it comes into your head about wanting to take one, like I'm of the belief now that the first moment it enters your head to take one, take one.
Okay. And is there a structure to your timeout according to if it's their timeout? Do they vary? Or is it...
It's interesting because I got myself a little voice recorder as someone who's in my masters, and just personally, I'm always really hot on the language I use and the conversations we have. I like my timeouts to be again, not necessarily a discussion, but I like there to be reciprocal, like back and forth between players or not. I appreciate there is a time and a place for coaches to just say, look, this is what we're going to go do. But again, I think if you don't get feedback from your players at times, how can we don't read minds? You know, yes, we could be great like observers, we could be great noticing stuff. But in those situations, all we are is we're guessing, or we're just using an educated eye. So the structure of my timeouts is normally just to get some feedback from Seth and Roger first, just to, hey, what do you think? What do you feel? And I try and empower those two to speak up when they can. And if I'm honest, across the year, I probably didn't do that enough. There were some timeouts this year that I probably went in just too quickly. Maybe it was because of how the game was going or whatever, but I like to be someone that just takes a moment. That gives a chance for players to talk amongst players. And for a series of questioning, just from finding out how they're feeling, what they're seeing out there. There will be some key themes we'll talk about, but my big thing is if I'm talking too much, they're going to walk out there going, well, what did coach even talk about? You know, so it just there has to be a clear focus. And I need to be better at it, but there needs to be something that the players can go away and feel, okay, this is our direction moving from here now. So I'd like to sit here now and say there is a purpose to all my timeouts, but I bought something to record my timeouts, and it stayed in my bag for the latter part of the season. And every time I finished the game, I would turn around to Roger and go, oh man, I got that voice recorder again and I still didn't use it, you know. So hopefully next year I'll actually put that to good use. And for me, it's just it's another tool to just see. I guess the big question I had this year was we were sometimes poor coming out of half times into second halves. We were sometimes poor coming out in, and for me, it's very easy for a coach to say, "Oh, players didn't do this or players didn't do that," but I'm just of the firm belief that you have to look internally first, and introspection is always good. So I bought that device to actually just go, because I'm interested. You know, I'm interested to say, what did I say in that moment? How was it received? What was then said back? Could there have been a better way I said it? Because at the end of the day, all I really want is them to go, yeah, okay, this is what we're doing next. Whether they agree with it, don't agree with it, I just want there to be some clear messages that they can go out on the court in the next few moments and there be an improved element of whatever it was we're talking about. You know, that's the ideal. Whether it's done just me, whether it's done through them, whether it's done on a shared basis. Like I'm not against giving players a timeout to themselves. You know, at the end of the day, we're in this collectively. That there has to be some shared ownership to this to say that they have some knowledge too. You know, and again, why would I not want to use that to our advantage?
Okay. No, great point. Thank you. It's coming to the end of the game now. Can you remember these passages of play?
Yeah, I mean, if Alan sees this, I don't think he'll want to relive these moments because there's a questionable decision coming up soon that I think changes the game in our favour and not theirs. And I have to be honest, I don't necessarily agree with the decision that was made. But yeah, I think in this moment, still, we're getting the shots we want. You know, as you're looking, there's a number of times we're creating chances at the rim, we're creating open shots. There's a few times where maybe a bit of over reversal of the ball, some over. As I said earlier, look at that last play phase. There are definitely some chances for us to take a shot. Might not have been the best shot in the world, but it was a shot we would have been happy to take. What did it end up with? A 4 shot from Toby off balance.
Yeah.
That was probably worse than we could have got earlier.
Do you think that was because something I've noticed? Orlan is getting the ball a lot in these final few moments. Do you think the offense is becoming stagnated because they're just trying to get him the ball?
Not necessarily. It's something we're emphasized, as you see there. As LVC passes it, he shallow cuts through. Prince goes on the other side. So in that moment there, we were about to have a open side or a 2-man game with no one in the corner through LVC and Orlan. Obviously, Orlan picks some pops. Yeah, okay. LVC's hitting that shot from quite a bit back from the 3-point line. But I mean, again, in this moment, LVC has one of those games, and he drops 34 points. From this game, he goes and gets Player of the Week. Yeah. Straight after the week before where Orlan gets it. So that in these moments, crunch time moments, you have to trust some of your players, you know. And when you've got guys like Orlan and LVC and Prince and Chuck and these guys out there, I think you have to trust these guys. So I'm not upset. The ball is in his hands a lot. Yes, okay. The other team might be defending him a certain way, but I trust him one-on-one in those situations to find us advantage. I trust LVC in those situations. I trust Prince. I trust Chuck. Even Toby there taking that shot. You could sit there and say bad shot for the moment of the game. And he apologized straight away to LVC, as you've seen there. Yeah. But again, I'm yes, teach Toby that that's a better shot to take, but he commits to it. You know, he makes one in that situation against. I want to say it's Westminster, or I want to say it's a team that we play in these moments in the latter few games of the year. That he makes a shot in that situation that's pivotal for us to win the game. You know, so it's one of those situations you have a go at that guy to make that shot or take that shot. Who's to know that you're not stopping him from a chance to win you the game or keep you in the game? So yeah, we ride our luck a little bit. They don't go and capitalize from Toby taking a rush shot, but as I said, you've got to trust some guys to make some decisions.
That's a big call at the end there,
and I think it's the quickest 5-second call. And, I think it's the quickest 5 seconds. That's just me, and I think this is one of those things where you're seeing, like I said earlier, that I drew something up and it worked for us. I drew something up then and it didn't work for us, you know, and I just think that's the heat of the moment. You know?
I really like what you do here. Number 41, excuse me, I should know his name. Have you put on the inbounder for the length of his arms and what he's doing right now?
I'm not even going to take credit for it. You know, one of the players comes up with this, you know. I'm talking to the coaches about making some changes. And I think they did it early on. Someone did it, or someone else had done it to us before. And I couldn't tell you word for word what happened, but I want to say one of the players says, let's bring Ahmed on. And let's put him on the inbounder, length, whatever. And it works perfectly. Length, jumping up and down, he disrupts it. and great. You know, it gets whatever we need to get. So yeah, I'm humble enough to not take credit for that.
No, great. Now going into overtime, 86 all. Reading have only won one quarter. Do your
Yeah,
tactics mindset change, or you stick with what's working?
it's tough, isn't it? Because you play like we've played, and at this time of the year to be winning 3 out of the 4 quarters, you hope to be going home winning that game.
Yeah.
Um, I'd be lying if I said it didn't play on my mind, but I don't think in this situation I can allow it to play on my mind because, as I've said before, we we haven't really found ourselves in this situation a lot. So right now, I have to be championing the things that's made us successful. I have to be championing us getting down the floor early. I have to be championing us moving the basketball. I have to be championing us getting the ball to certain people. You know, um, yeah.
Love it. Yeah, fantastic.
And look, and I think again, to put a trust in someone like Toby in these moments to be on the floor just says how far he came. But again, not to take some credit away from him, this is another one of the situations where, as I said earlier, we underutilized Aaron in these moments. When you're looking for some stops and stuff like that, Toby does another great job there. Oz is sitting on the bench. I think this was the dilemma we had at this part of the year, that I'd have loved to have had this team. And obviously, of course, who wouldn't have loved to have had LVC and Orlan all year, you know, and how they helped us and Oz and stuff like that. But you know, we came off the back of this and we've just said, look, we'd have loved to have these guys just a couple more weeks longer than that we did do, because I'm sitting here now with these 5, and then with the Ray, with Oz, with Toby, with Aaron. Like we're 8-9 deep now. I think at this stage of season we struggled. Tenny had an injury. Obviously we'd lost Jarrell recently. Hafiz left early in the year. So just I think the whirlwind of the year just gives credit to the fact that Toby had been there throughout. I think another key member of this game that we're missing at these moments is James. You know, maybe not the biggest scorer of the world, but he's another one like Chuck. You know, someone goes down, he's the first one there. Someone needs celebrating, he's the first one there. You need someone to go and guard the other team's 5. You need someone to go and guard the point guard. He's just another one of these people that just says, "Jump how high, coach? Like I'll run for any brick wall you have." So you're looking at rebounding. We definitely missed a James in this situation because athletic, young, like we definitely could have done with his tenacity and his aggression in these moments in these games, you know. So it'd have been great to have him on the floor for us.
And something you must be really proud of. For the season, you averaged 15 assists, and in this game, you got 26. Is that something you praise the guys for?
Absolutely. You know, like for our style, to average only 15 isn't good enough, you know, and it was a constant battle across the year. That in a Prince, I think he's one of the best facilitators in the division, you know, and yes, he would have liked it and we would have liked him probably to score more. He probably would have liked to have more scoring opportunities last year. But I think when you have this starting 5, two point guards, 2 guards in LVC and Prince that can find anyone in any moment, you've got a guy in Orlan who can score, but not only find someone to get 26 assists in this game, like is pivotal to why we win, you know. But I think that kind of thing we could have had all year, you know, and it was something we emphasized a lot, but didn't get enough, you know.
Now, I think this is a great bit of coaching from yourself here. You've got a young player on the floor, Toby. He turns the ball over. He then runs back and causes an and one. And you call him straight over. Now, you could have quite easily subbed him out, but you keep him in. And then on the next possession, I think you should give yourself a lot of credit, because that young boy's confidence would be rock low, really low right now. And what's about to happen, I think, is fantastic. So fair play to you on this one.
Look, I think it's one of those things where, as I've said before, it's too easy in that moment to take that kid out and chastise him for a decision he's just made. He tries to skip the ball to LVC for, in his mind, like he thinks someone is open. Yes, definitely he could have made a different decision. Yes, he turns the ball over. Yes, but he sprints back. He tries to make a play. Is he effective? No, but as you're seeing here now, he's made a 3 and he's now forced Nick to miss a shot.
Yeah.
You know, it's too easy in that moment. Just take him off, have a go at him, and for what? Okay, like he comes down the floor. Then now he's coming out. I go to give him a high five. Like I think as coaches we owe it to our players to believe in them. You know, and maybe I believe in him a bit more than others because I know his family well or whatever. And again, I don't want to take credit away from him as a young man. You know, like he's very mature for his age. He loves playing at this level. He loved every single minute of that. And I would have backed him in every single situation that they left him that open. I'd have bet my house on him making that shot. You know, and I think, as I said, as coaches, I think we owe it to any of our players, not just the young ones, to trust in them. If he would have made that skip pass and didn't even bother getting back, that's a different discussion, you know. But he makes that skip pass. He runs back. He tries to make a play. You can see in him walking around that's affecting him in that moment, you know. Yeah, okay, maybe once you see that, you see it affecting him, bring him off. I just don't believe in that. You know, I don't believe in. It's the same thing of. Like, and I'll use this example, and maybe Ryan being on last week won't like this, but I spoke to him about it. The season before, we go in at halftime in Nottingham, and I'll be brief, and we're down by like 20 odd points, not playing very well, Nottingham shooting the lights out. And I think the saving grace for us in Nottingham is the long walk to the dressing room. And I stop Roger and I say, look, we're about to go in there and absolutely hammer these guys for something they already know. They already know we're down by how many points. They already know we're not playing very well. Why are we just going to say this thing to them that they already know? So in that moment, Toby already knows he's turned the ball over, already knows he's given an M1, already is feeling bad about himself. Why am I going to make matters worse by just beating him up for that exact same thing that he already knows? Why don't I help him deal with that moment and help him be better next time? And as you can see, he runs down the floor, he sprints down the floor to get to the spot, and he hits his shot. You know, that's all on him. You know, that's all on him, and as a young man to take the pressure of that situation and be ready to play. And
No,
that's just another thing of
credit there. I think that was a fantastic bit of coaching.
But as I said, I think lastly, as I said before, you know, like your players are out there in the heat of the moment. You know, you have to give something to them. You know, you have to as a coach give something to them that knows that you've got them. You know, and I just think in that moment, it was just very easy for me to just to say, Toby, be ready to take that shot. Be ready for it to come to you. Be ready for something to happen, you know. And as I said earlier, a couple of play phases before this, he shoots that one in the corner and then he apologizes before it goes to overtime. Like, I think that just shows that I know I can trust him to make those decisions, and that just shows his development this year of accepting his role as a shooter on this team, rather than maybe he has a different role in his EABL under 18 team.
Okay. On that last play, as they were bringing the ball up, Elvisi shouts horns. You're very quick to say no motion. What was the rationale behind that?
I just felt that we were better with a bit more movement. I just felt that horns in particular we were a bit too static in it. But it's the thing. It's if I'm honest, looking back on it, that's one of those things where he made his decision. He trusts it. As a reflection, we should have gone with it. You know, like because again, for me, we're out there in this moment. He calls something. The guys are already going to a spot. I call something else. They're now running to a different spot. Like now we've lost moments in the game for what?
Yeah.
You know, yes, one possession can change a game, but as I've just been saying, trust your players. Maybe in hindsight, I should have just trusted. What's the worst thing that could have happened? We didn't. We turned the ball over in that moment with Prince when Prince had the ball towards the end. So maybe if we would have ran the horns, we might not have turned the ball over. You know,
Big still, right?
I don't know. Yeah, massive one.
Do you think you'd won it yet?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't even know. Like you can't see because the scoreboard's down the other end. But look, too many times this year. I remember when we went to Leicester right before Christmas, and we were up, you know, for the whole game, and they managed to come back and they win in overtime. And so at this moment, no, Oz has just made that shot in the corner. Yes, we're at the foul line, but you have to earn them. So until that referee whistle goes up, not trying to sound too cliche, like, yes, we're in a great position. Yes, a part of me is sitting there thinking we're going to do this. But you have to stay in it.
Yeah, you've had some unbelievable performances. LVC 34 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds. Orland Jackman 26 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. Oz comes on 11.6 rebounds. Toby 9 points. You've got balanced scoring. You've got everyone contributing. You must have been really pleased with this win.
Yeah, as I said all along, Reading are a really tough team, and irrespective of them and their injury worries, like they could still beat most teams on most days. So I think being in the situation to win this game, I think the feeling after all of this is only one of elation. It gives us a massive drive on for the future games. It gives us a sense of like we do belong in this league, and I felt that we were better than the position we found ourselves in, but we found ourselves in that position for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the thing that just is frustrating is that you never would have known that if we would have had some of these guys for a little bit longer, like who would have known what would have happened,
Yeah, for sure. I think it's brilliant, the reactions at the end. Shows how much it means to the guys.
Yeah, look, and it's to give them credit, isn't it? Like it's been a long season for all of them. Prince has been there since the start. Chuck's been there since the start. Toby's been there since the start. The James and them have been there since the start. Like it's credit to them that they've stuck it out for this long, and to get that win then was a driving force to what happened in future weekends.
So, what's your reflections of this game? How do you structure your post game?
It was very much of a job's not done yet. Because we still have a long way to go. But it was a celebration of to go to Reading and to win. I think this was off the back of playing Hemel, Derby, Thames Valley, and Reading. I think were the 4 games we had before we played Liverpool, Nottingham, and obviously we never got round to playing Worthing. But I think we said we needed to win one of those 4 games, and we came close against you guys after that mammoth fourth quarter we had, and we didn't really play very well against Thames Valley, and we should have beaten Derby, but we were poor down the stretch. So to win one of those games is huge, because it's not against anyone who's around us. So we knew we had, like I said, Nottingham and Liverpool to come up and stuff like that. So we knew we needed to beat them. So it was massive for us. So it was one of celebration, but it was one of very much job not done. I obviously pinpointed some key guys, as you said, that sort of helped us out a lot. But it was very much let's get home, let's rest up, let's be ready to play again because there was still a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Yeah, it certainly was a great team performance, as we talked about earlier, with the 26 assists. All right, Tom, that's it. Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to talk with you. I thought you were incredibly honest, incredibly humble, and very self-reflective, which is what I want all of these to be about. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate you giving me a chance to come on. I think it's easy to sit here and watch these games back as a coach by yourself and just have some internal thoughts, but to talk it with someone obviously like yourself that has some knowledge of this level, but also a coach that wants to learn more stuff for that. It's just great talking basketball, and I think just looking back on this, there's probably things that I've got from this conversation with you and me that maybe I wouldn't have got before. And I just think it's great to have this. So no, I think this is great that you're doing this, and I look forward to the future ones that you've got coming up.
Thank you. That's exactly the purpose of me doing it. It was quite selfish. I've learned an incredible lot listening to you, but I hope others will too. So thank you for that, Tom.
No, you're welcome.